Blitz podcast listeners. My name is Branson. This is Nickel Blitz Overtime. We're going to look at some waiver wire pickups that you might want to look at this week. We're going to start first with running back. So at the running back position, I saw a lot of people drop Myles Gaskin. The man in our league dropped Myles Gaskin also. He has just had a great week. We were seeing his production go up the more catches he gets, the more attempts he gets. This offense may start trusting him. I don't think he is a start next week. This is a stingy Jacksonville defense. I do like Myles Gaskin as a pickup and stash option. He could be some trade bait if you have kept on to him long enough. His value may not go up from here. Anytime a player gets 2 touchdowns, you might want to look at trading them. But if you're someone who dropped Myles Gaskin, you might think about picking him back up. And if you're hurt at running back, Myles Gaskin is a guy you can plug in, and you know what? He might have a big day here and there. He had an okay week 1, had an okay week 3, and that against a bad Vegas Raiders defense, however. But this Tampa Bay running defense, they're absolutely stacked. They've been dealing with some injuries, mainly in the secondary, but I like Myles Gaskin as a pickup. Look at this here, 18% drop from last week. People gave up on Myles Gaskin. I think it's because his coach didn't really trust him for a while, it seems. That may be changing, so pick him up. I want to talk about Williams, the running back out of, here he is, Damian Williams. He had a really solid week. His week was saved by a touchdown, but he had plenty of attempts. I think this is a guy, again, if you're hurting running back or if you're a David Montgomery owner. You should have picked him up last week, but if you were not paying attention, he had a solid week. His production could go down. He was dealing with some injury. I cannot for the life of me remember what injury it was, but it wasn't obviously bad enough for him not to get his attempts in. He got plenty of attempts this game. Look at that, 70%. Yeah, a lot of people were ready for this handcuff, picking him up. I like him quite a bit. I also want to talk about his backup, which I do not see on this top 25 list here, but his backup had 18 carries. His name's Khalil Herbert. This is a guy that, especially in deeper leagues, I think you can feel comfortable with. On 18 carries, he had 75 rushing yards. He's not going to get you the same passing production that Williams will get you. But this is a guy, again, if you're hurting, it seems he's out next week again, or if you're a Carlos EDWARDS-HELAIRE owner, this is a guy that you can plug right in and feel perfectly safe with. If they keep using him as they did. Now, this is a Las Vegas Raiders, I keep wanting to say Oakland, a Las Vegas Raiders team that is not a good run defense whatsoever. But that being said, this is not a guy I think you should miss if you're in, especially if you're in that deeper league. Take a look at him. I also don't see on this list here Alex Collins. I do like what I saw from him last week here. I can give a quick search for Alex Collins here. Chris Carson out multiple weeks. We don't know quite the extent of his injury at this time. Not a lot of people picked him up last week. As you can see, had a solid game. Again, if you're hurting a running back, he looks like he'll have a better time of it next week without Russell Wilson and against Pittsburgh. I guess that wouldn't be true. He would not have a better time next week without Russell Wilson, possibly, and against a good run-stopping Pittsburgh Steelers defense. This could be a guy you can stash. You can pick up. Chris Carson injury is likely longer than 2 weeks, from what I can tell. This is a guy that you grab him in a pinch. I think you can play him, but I think you're hoping for a touchdown. I don't know how big his upside is. This is a guy, though, that you can look his way if you are indeed hurting in that department. I have in my notes here a couple more guys to look at. Obviously, Saquon Barkley out 2 to 4 weeks, I think is what they said. His backup Devonte Booker obviously not going to give you the ceiling that Saquon's going to give you. But he had 16 attempts. He had a rushing touchdown. He had 4 targets, so PPR, even half PPR league. There's some value here. he's got a tough Dallas defense, a tough LA defense next week, and then Carolina. So the matchups are not favorable. I would avoid playing him if you have options that you think are as good with better matchups. But Devonte Booker, a guy you can look the way of in a pinch. Another running back here. Let's see, Daryl Williams of Kansas City. Williams, let's see, 5 rushing attempts. They're not going to be very flashy numbers this week. But he has some good matchups. I like the matchup in Washington for him this coming week with CEH out. Good God, I cannot. I'm not going to be able to find him. Am I? Let's see. Ah, here he is. Okay, I was looking right past him. Yeah, Daryl Williams here. These numbers are fine. He's going to get used in the passing game. This Chiefs offense, some ups and downs through the first 5 weeks, right? They could look Daryl Williams' way to maybe solve some of those issues if they're not finding the deep pass with Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill also questionable, has a questionable tag on your fantasy roster. He'll likely play. Kelsey also questionable, but he hasn't missed a game since 2013. I think he will be fine too. Again, these are all running backs. I think these are not guys that are going to win you the league, but they could here and there cover up a couple of your points that you're missing from other injuries. And I think for running backs, that's about all I see. I'm not really interested here in Latavius Murray. I'm certainly not interested in Tyson Williams. They don't use him enough. I just don't feel safe picking him up. I do, however, feel safe about the Aaron Jones backup in Green Bay. I love A.J. Dillon, man. This is he had a really nice week last week. He found the touchdown from 12 yards out instead of Jones on a little dink pass here from Rodgers early in the game. That hurts me as an Aaron Jones owner, but A.J. Dillon emerging as one of the better handcuffs, I would say, you can find. You have your Tony Pollards out there. You have your P. Ryans. I think he's on the lower end of handcuffs. Obviously, Kareem Hunt being the greatest handcuff in the league. He's so good, you can just start him week in, week out. He had 2 touchdowns last week. He's fantastic. Yeah, pick up A.J. Dillon. This guy, he just looked really good out there, honestly. I think Aaron Jones is looking a little bit more dynamic, especially in the pass game. But Dillon had some targets this week, which is just fantastic. 4 targets, 4 receptions, 50 yards, and a touchdown. Those are not numbers I think he's hitting every week with Aaron Jones in. But in those games that Green Bay break away from, you're going to see more Dillon in, and he's going to get some garbage time points. I like him as a pickup. If you're an Aaron Jones owner, I think he's a must-own. If you're not an Aaron Jones owner, you can lot him over your Aaron Jones owner and see if you can bait out a trade, maybe package him with someone else. But for the running backs, that's kind of all I'm seeing here. Out there on the waiver wire for the wide receiver position. It was a bizarre week for rookie wide receiver Kadarius Toney. He got ejected. He had some kind of injury off camera that we just don't know the extent of yet. But you cannot argue, okay? I mean, my goodness, you cannot argue with the production on his really what I would consider his debut here. He had a reception out here. That's fine. They used him in the run game too, but look at this, 189 yards. Man had an absolute day. I think he just looked like a man out there. In all honesty, he just looked like a man. And by God, you should pick him up, even if he faces some kind of suspension for the punch he threw. Very odd game, but the rookie, I think with the depleted lineup as they have Galladay and Shepard, Shepard may be back next week. We just don't know. The Barkley out for extended period of time. This offense is depleted. Hell, the Daniel Jones might be out for a while, or at least for potentially a week. Just a very bizarre I don't know if he is a start, especially if Daniel Jones is not in. However, I like to pick him up here, and I think you just kind of bide your time and see what goes on, because I can't predict this New York offense. But anyone who can put up nearly 200 yards in the NFL, I think, is worth a roster spot. You're going to see this 2.5% jump up. 30 points. Goodness, man, what a crazy game. That must be in a PPR league here, because he had quite a few targets, 13 targets, 10 receptions, 190 yards. You're looking at also a rush attempt, and you know what? If the Giants can find out how to get the ball to him and give him some more red zone targets, he had 2 red zone targets. You know what? It could be an interesting piece for you. I think he must be the wide receiver pickup of the week. Just very, very bizarre game that was for him. Emmanuel Sanders, he's already been rostered in 66% of leagues. However, that must go up. Josh Allen playing out of his mind, absolutely out of his mind. He hurdled a grown man, jumped over him, and he's been exciting to watch. The Bills' offense has been exciting to watch. But you love seeing a little bit of receiving yards. Only 5 targets, so this is not a guy I think you can start every single week. But when you think it's going to be a shootout, such as it was with Kansas City, this guy is fine. He's a good flex play if you don't have enough depth at any position to make a flex play you're more comfortable with. I like what I'm seeing from him. Who knew this older statesman in the league would have a resurgence this half of the season, or this early bit of the season? But really, 3 solid games in a row. You don't mind having just 74 yards. I think in week 4. I mean, if he can't find the end zone, it does, of course, hurt his upside. But you know what, Emmanuel Sanders, that roster percentage should go up for sure. Spend a bit of fab on him. I don't go all out if you're in a fab league, but this is fine. I quite like him. Do the Steelers get it together enough for you to think about Chase Claypool? Well, 6 targets, 130 yards, 1 receiving touchdown. I feel the same about Claypool as I do Deontay Johnson. I think I'm higher on Deontay Johnson. But Claypool back from injury, I liked what I saw. I think this is a solid player. This is a guy, if you're hurting at receiver, of course pick him up. I wouldn't imagine spending too much fab on him. Looks like he was dropped quite a bit last week, so he's going to be available in some of your leagues. He is available actually in the league that the other co-hosts, Kevin and Garvey, are in with me. After the owner of him lost faith in Ben Roethlisberger. I don't know why you wouldn't lose faith in Ben Roethlisberger, but Big Ben kind of proved he can throw a little bit. He can still throw it a bit. I still have to see more until I'm ready to start Chase Claypool week in, week out. Next week against Seattle, and he's a bye week, week 7, so this is just not a priority pickup. I do like him though. I think this is a good player. If you haven't picked up, kind of a weird Cardinals game last week, but a name that keeps popping up, who I think you can get for low fab. A lot of the Fantasy Pros at the Fantasy Pros podcast were talking about this. Several other podcasts I listened to were all pretty high on Rhonda Moore as a stash target. He's a rookie. These numbers could go up. Like, he's very, as you can see, this chart up and down. He doesn't seem to be out there too often. He was needed quite a bit this game. He just has incredible speed. 6 targets, 5 receptions, 60 yards, and then another 40 rushing yards. Just an interesting game. I think this is a very interesting player too. As Bruce Arians maybe comes to trust him more with more touches, if he keeps handling himself like this is a good guy to pick up and just kind of ride him out and see where it goes. By week 8, 9, 10, This could be a guy who is a regular staple piece in the offense. That's what you hope. There's just a lot of receivers out there on the Cardinals that are just interesting, but they just don't quite make the cut in a lot of leagues. And I know in our league, Rhonda Moore isn't picked up. I had him 2 weeks ago, and again posted very low fantasy numbers, very low usage, not out there much. 3.7 in our league in week 4, 0.4 in week 3. Had that explosive week 2 and a nice week 5 here. Someone to keep an eye on for sure. Oh man, so Antonio Brown, a lot of pickups for him. A lot of people who have not picked him up will pick him up now. Just a crazy week. Obviously, that's not going to happen every week. Tampa Bay have a lot of targets to spread it to, but an interesting player to pick up. I think you could use him as trade bait. I don't think Antonio Brown's going to be much better in terms of value. Hopefully, did I not spell Antonio correctly? Oh, I did. Okay, sweet. Antonio Brown. I think you look to trade him now, and I know this is a waiver wire pickup show. But he has gotten a lot of attention on the waivers now. That last 3% should pick him up. But 2 touchdowns, 130 yards, 130 yards. When a player gets numbers like that, and especially if they're older, I think you ship them, you maybe package them, you see what you can get out there, you fill up a position that maybe you're low on, maybe you find a better receiver that you think is going to be more consistent. Brady-Brown combination is absolutely evident. It's stuck around. I like what I see from Antonio Brown. I don't hate keeping him, but I think you shop the market. I'd like to talk about Michael Pittman. 7 targets tonight, 6 receptions. That was 86 yards. This is 89 yards and a touchdown. Fine performance from him. The Colts just stalled out that second half. Not quite sure what happened. Their defense just looked tired. But I like Michael Pittman. Look at this, 75%. He was dropped by many players last week, and really not a terrible week last week. 60 yards. In some games, in some weeks, sometimes just getting 6 to 10 points from a receiver is fine if you're getting better points from somewhere else. From a guy like Pittman, I don't think you scoff at those numbers, but it's great that he found the end zone for the first time. Hopefully that connection with Wentz grows and we see more touchdowns come his way. I love the matchup in Houston. Don't love the matchup in San Francisco. But he has Houston week 6. He has Jets week 9. Some tough defenses here. Tampa Bay's. You can throw it on though. So he's got some nice matchups. The last final stretch of the season, I like a lot of these matchups here. But Michael Pittman's definitely a guy to look at. Tight end wise, if you haven't picked up Dawson Knox, I think you should. Hunter Henry has giving him sort of a tip of the hat for 8 targets. Young quarterbacks love their tight ends. If he can stay healthy and on the field, I think this is absolutely fine. It was against Houston, but the second week in a row, Hunter Henry has found the end zone. I like picking him up. Dallas is not the best matchup. I think he's playable here. I love the matchups at the Jets, at Atlanta coming up. So fine tight end to pick up. I don't like to spend too much time on tight ends. There's kind of just a couple good tight ends, and then the rest of them are sort of plug and play, or you're streaming them. And to wrap it up, for your defenses, whoever play the Jets this next week, that's who you're picking up. That's what a guy in our league does. If they're not already picked up, pick them up. Pick them up in advance. Whoever plays the Jets, baby, that's who you pick up. And that'll do it for some waiver wire overtime, nickel blitz overtime. And I will talk to you all. We should have a podcast out tomorrow. Today is Monday the 11th. Tomorrow's Tuesday. That would be the 12th. And we'll get another, hopefully a banger podcast out. Crazy week in the NFL. Lots of crazy stuff happening. So talk to you guys later. Thanks.